And hello, everyone. It is episode, I think, 11 of Get It for 2022. And today I'm privileged to have my good friend, Nikola Gaidarov, to chat a little bit about something that I certainly am quite passionate about. And I know that he is also. And that's digital transformation. And maybe steer the conversation a little bit in the direction of everything that goes wrong with typical initiatives, and make it practical. What can we do to fix it and make it better and make it work? So, welcome, Nicola. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Um,
Thank you, Johan.
so,
Yes.
tell us a little bit about yourself before we start, so that people know who they're dealing with. Um,
Okay. I'm raised and I still live in Bulgaria, in Sofia, which is the capital of Bulgaria, Eastern Europe. In the last 15 years, I've done a lot of projects in IT. Um, I have been working with a lot of the market leaders like BMC Remedy, ServiceNow. I have been working with Atlassian. But aside from the tools, I have always tried to be on top of the theory as well. So over the years, I have successfully managed to get certification as an ITIL version 3 expert, also as ITIL 4 um, managing professional. And recently, I also jumped a little bit in another, let's say, topic, SAFE. So I also certified myself there. Um, I think, as I said, in these last 15 years, I gained a lot of practical experience speaking to customers, understanding their requirements, what they want, what they need actually in the end. And in these years, I think I managed now to have a good understanding what works well and what doesn't. And of course, have some idea when it comes to the implementation how to approach the projects, because not every project is the same, not every customer is the same, so there are big differences depending on the size, depending on the area that the customer is working in.
okay, cool. So, we bumped into each other through a common friend. Um, who's actually visiting South Africa this week.
Great.
So we had
Nice.
dinner last night.
Okay.
Yeah, and Nicola became part of the Adapt ecosystem. Um, so that's one of the ways that I try to contribute to the conversation around digital transformation. And I must say, he's been a very valuable contributor and sounding board for many of the ideas that we come up with and test in the market. So thank you for that.
Thank you
So
as well.
digital transformation, or the digital noise in digital transformation. What do you mean by that?
um as I said, I had many projects and I spoken with many customers, and over the years I came to realize that when we speak about digital transformation projects, etc., some people, I mean, especially people that are driving the projects, are seeing this really as a, how to say, as a career change, as a something, that maybe it will change their lives and they will do something really great, which is okay. It's always great to have motivate people to do implementations. But I noticed that for a lot of other people, which are in the same organization, this was not maybe their best time. They were not really sure what was this all about. Was it only about the tool? Was it something else that the IT organization or the CIO was trying to do? So in the end of the day, after of course some years, I came to realize that the first point that was always missing in this discussion, and I think it's also there every time we speak about digital transformation, is value. What are we delivering actually? What is the
Mm.
value of what we're doing? Is it the tool that we're delivering, or it's something more than this?
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, again, the value definition, the value description, um, not the best, not the best. So a lot of times we're starting a project and only some people are aware why we're doing this project and what will be the change in the end and how the value will be improved, and for the other people, maybe it's just a noise. Maybe it's just something like a spam in their mailbox. Maybe it's just, something that they hear, in the background that is happening, but, they don't realize how they are affected by all of this, So
Okay.
that's why I started to use this term saying, we have digital transformation and we have digital noise out of it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So uh, somebody the other day said, I can't remember who it was, that people don't really resist change. They just resist change happening to them.
Hmm.
And if they're part of the conversation, all of a sudden that changes. I think most of the times that's true. Yeah. And what's interesting that you mentioned that, is it something that the CIO is doing rather than, is it something that's driven by the board?
Hmm.
So how do you get the conversation out of IT? How do you get the conversation away from the tool?
I have this question when we start a project, and especially if the board, to some extent is present. Even better if there is the whole senior management, and
Mhm.
then ask them, okay, is this now a business transformation or an IT transformation? Um, and this is really how to say, a discussion opener, because
Mm.
basically, the reason for me to ask this question is really to understand what are we facing. Is it
Mm.
really a one-man show, of the CIO or some of the IT director, or is it really like, by the way, when I hear digital transformation, I always connect it, to the business transformation as well. Changing the
Mm.
business, changing how you do the things. Not only implementing a certain tool. So that's something I'd really like to have in the beginning and to have it discussed, in the round, because if I get a lot of answers saying it's just an IT transformation, means that we're really going to have a lot of noise afterwards.
Yeah.
Because again, for the business people, for the maybe even the clients and the consumers of the services of this organization, that's just noise, where they will not see the value at all. They will not even try to understand it, because once you market as a noise, then you stop listening, and you don't care anymore of what is happening.
Yeah. And I think that's so true for many organizations, is that, it is, I always say to people, there's two words in the term: digital and transformation.
Yes.
One is not important. And when I say one is not important, I don't mean that you're going to get it right without digital. Um, but even if you get the digital right, and the organization didn't change or look differently or create new value, as you said, then it was actually just, chasing our tails.
Yeah.
And
I, I can add something here, Johan. Sorry to interrupt you, but
no,
there is this diagram, that really, it's very simple diagram that I saw, in the last years, saying why do we need actually digital transformation in the first place?
mm,
What is the driver? Aside from becoming better and etc. etc. And it said, look, the digital technology is changing exponentially. Are you here?
I don't know what happened there. It disappeared. So you
Yeah.
were the digital. And then, yeah.
So the
something that-
digital, what I wanted to say is that this graphic was showing that the digital technology nowadays, the life cycle of new technology, and in general, the development of digital technology is exponential. So it's
Yeah.
growing very fast, very, very fast. We have like a new technology is coming, and after a couple of years, it's already accepted by the masses and really, used by a lot of people, which was, like previously would have taken maybe 5, 10 years, to have such a penetration and such a usage. So you have from one side exponential, and from another side, the organizations, how they develop as organization, as changing their maturity, it's logarithmic. So purely mathematically, if you can imagine, there is a big deviation in both of those. So technology is booming, changing quickly, coming. And on the other side, if you can think about it, we still think that working from home is like really wow. A lot of people say, yeah, this is so modern, to be able to work remotely and from home. And what about, the way we do our business and the way we manage people and everything else, um, there is still a lot, which is, I mean, when you read the books, especially about managing people and organization, some of the things are like over 50 years old, that are still valid and they're true. I'm not saying that they're not true. So please, I'm not saying that you should not read, people like Drucker, every time I read him, I think this guy was a genius, because of what he wrote. So organizations are not there. They are not developing as fast, and they're not even trying sometimes to develop as fast,
Yeah.
so the deviation becomes bigger and bigger.
Yeah, but I also think, talking about this, reading the theory, is that some theory are timeless, others are not.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yes.
think that's the new challenge for leadership in organizations today, is to recognize when you are busy dealing with a timeless concept, something like marketing myopia, which always will be timeless. Well, I suppose always a long time, or something else, because there's a ton of things. Yeah, I can't believe it. I mean, I did my MBA nearly 20 years ago, and most of what I've learned, I can't use anymore, because it just doesn't apply. So, okay, so if there's this, I suppose the fact that technology is growing exponentially also then implies that society, or the use of technology in society, makes exponential changes in the behavior of our consumers.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you close that gap? Because it's not about the technology that's wow, it's about the fact that people want to deal with your business in a different way. What's the solution?
I think when you think about it, simplistically, very simplistically, I think there are two core capabilities that each organization need to have nowadays to be, as you just said, be there, for the customers which are now also digitally growing every day.
Mhm.
Like my 4 year old daughter can now put on a tablet and choose her game and play on a tablet, and she's 4. Um, so two things. First thing is we can have the so-called digital capabilities. Okay, so what does this mean? Digital capability means how well the organization can accept new technology, how well organization can implement new technology, and how well it can make use of technology in general. Okay,
Mhm.
and this is a very general thing. Okay, and this is something I think some organizations are better at, and some organizations are not so good at. And they keep staying there. Okay, and then on the other side, we have something which we can call the leadership capability. which means basically, okay, you have these people on top, senior management, but are they really capable of leading such a project? So imagine, these guys, all their experience was like they were in their prime, I would say some years ago, and now everything has changed, and the customers have changed, and the business have changed, and the applications have changed, so question mark, do we have the leadership to lead us through this, so really to have, and I'm saying leadership, not management,
Yeah.
um, do we have the leadership to lead us through this transformation in the right way, because again, that's not an easy thing, to be done.
But but that sort of implies that if organizations, or first of all, if the leaders of the organization don't invest in their own development, the organization will not be able to keep pace. And secondly, is if organizations don't invest in developing digital capabilities amongst the people broadly within the organization, um, they also going to struggle. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
But I mean, if you just look at the world economy the last few years, I mean, we've had COVID, we've had you know strange political events, we've had well, now on your doorstep there's a war raging. Yeah,
Yes.
and people don't necessarily want to invest a lot. Um, but if they don't, they're actually going to make their organizations exponentially worse, or
Yes.
less able to cope, I suppose,
Hmm.
with what's coming.
Yeah, I can give you some examples. Right now, there are a lot of people coming to Bulgaria, hopefully temporarily, because they're far away from their homes, Um, and our government is really struggling, Our government was definitely not prepared for this, and we can see it everywhere, It's like in the beginning they were asking the people, give us your paper documents, give us your passes, and people were like, we left everything, we just took our kids and we left, so we don't have everything. Okay, so big question mark then. Are you still a person? Are you still a citizen if you don't have your papers with you?
Mm,
So sadly, sadly, I can tell you that this is really challenging right now because if you cannot prove it on paper, it's really hard for some people right now to
mm,
live and to work. So it really struck me, to understand how much we rely on this, on the paper, on the documents, on things like vaccination calendar for the kids. You cannot put a kid to school because they don't have their vaccination calendar. I mean, I can understand the challenges and everything, but again, last year was COVID. This year we have a war. It's the world is changing faster and faster, and for me, again, if you look at the government, they need to have these digital capabilities, and they need to have a leadership which can really do the transformation, that can really lead this transformation, and not just complaining that we don't have enough resources or whatever,
yeah. Okay, so how do we develop digital capabilities?
Well, this is why I like this word capability, because in my head I always put a bigger timeline to this, right? So when we speak about organizational capability, this is not something that happens by just hiring someone, to join the team. Just a second. So one person cannot make this, but can drive it, of course. So what you need to do is definitely you need to focus on the people, right? You need to focus on the people. You need to focus on the processes. You need to focus on the tools. The classical people, processes, and tools. From some time ago, you can also take, for example, IT force dimensions. Whatever you take, You just need to do it holistically. You need to do it, how to say, gradually. You need to do it incrementally, but you need to do it basically. And the funny thing is, some companies started to do this in the beginning of the COVID, situation, but a lot of them stopped right now. So they just throw away everything they've done.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just trying to quickly look at some of the comments and notes coming in. Hello, Simone. Yeah, she just affirms the fact that we're so dependent on our old style of doing things, that we can that we become like a deer in the headlights. Yeah, when we don't have those capabilities. But I mean, sure enough, we need to do all of that stuff. But what is a digital capability, or what are digital capabilities? So if we say we need to develop them, I mean, what is it that we need to develop?
I think again, you can split it into different areas. Most importantly, again, for me, it's the people. So you need to, how to say, to educate as much as possible the people, but find the right level and the right way to do it. Because for each organization it's different. I worked for some security, personal security company. Of course they don't need to do, not everyone then needs to learn programming.
Yeah.
So that's definitely overhead. But some basic skills, some basic skills for the people, how they understand technology, how technology works in general, and how they can be part of some technological projects, in certain roles, even if they don't have a technical background. For example, a lot of companies, as you know, nowadays move to the product owner, product manager roles, and they hire people in these roles which have never seen technology maybe before, but are really experts in this field, and then they help these technological organizations to really get the practical understanding, the bits and pieces that were missing. So what I want to say is that for me, the door should not be shut. When you say it's an IT project, or a digital transformation project, you can involve a lot of people in such a project. Nobody says that everyone should be on the technological level of the implementing team,
Yeah.
but they should be aware of how these projects works, because to be honest with you, last year I was really shocked to understand that, I met some people which are, for more than 15 years in the business, and they don't know that the software must be first tested before put into the production. And I know this sounds crazy, but how you implement software, it's not rocket science. There are some basic rules about this, and I think everyone can learn about this, how to implement a software, or be part of such a project. One more time, so it's not leading a project, but be
Yes.
part of such a project.
Yeah. And I suppose if you think on a broad level, you started the conversation by saying the focus should be value. And I don't know if this is what you meant, but I'm assuming value for customers.
Yes, of course.
So if you think about a transformational project, it involves salespeople, it involves marketing people, it involves production people, it involves logistic people, because all of those people, in some way or another, interacts with the customer, and may have a contribution to make in terms of better understanding, I suppose, what the value is that the organization need to create for. What does the whole look like? Yeah. If we go back to Levitt, yeah. which said that people don't buy drills, they buy holes.
Yes, exactly. But there is something else here, Johan. We all now have grown, so we all now know that value is co-created, right? Very important, right? Very big letters, value is co-created. And what does this mean? I mean, in the end of the day, it means that if you make a digital transformation because of a customer or because you want to do it, and in the end get more customers, which is not bad, you need to change yourself, because how can you then have this value co-creation if your organization is the handbrake, if the people are not there, so you are just going to limit yourself as an organization, and the customer will not get the value, because even if the customer is there and ready to get this value, if your organization is not there, I don't think this co-creation will work then.
Yeah.
So that's something I think, again, is very often forgotten when we speak about value, when we speak about digital transformation, is what happens also internally, are we then ready to deliver this and co-create value?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and I suppose maybe we should stop talking about digital transformation. Maybe we should start talking just about organizational transformation. Because adding the digital world gives gives people the excuse not to become involved.
I agree with you. I fully agree with you. Again, we come back to the noise topic, right? So
Yeah.
as long as they hear digital, and as long as they feel that this is not their topic, like I'm, as you said, I'm a salesperson, or I'm a let's say some account manager, or whatever, and I hear digital, is it for me? No, not so much. So it's noise, so I really agree, that we can do it also the other way, which I try to imply, is we can fight as organization also, that when people hear digital, they don't consider it as a noise. This is what I wanted to imply also. So that's also another way to do it. What you're saying is also right, because I think in the end of the day, it's an organizational change usually. It's a business change usually,
Yeah.
because the examples I have read recently, again, coming back to Airbnb, and other examples of big digital transformations, and the whole time I was thinking, okay, was it the technology that did the change, or was it that they really opened up the business model, and they really opened up for the people and heard the people what they want, and this is what made the change, and not so much that they did a new web page, or a new application or whatever, because the web page or the application were not like, what should I say, state of the art, or something that we never seen before, so I think it was more the business model that they changed.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, I've I've recently booked some flights and hotels and stuff like that. And one of our friends is in the travel industry, and I really wanted to support her. But eventually, yeah, I just couldn't, because the price differential between doing my booking my accommodation and car hire on Booking.com
Hmm.
and finding a special on an airline, even though I'm a loyalty member of that airline, to take me to a specific page on their website where I would get the discount that I couldn't see when I just logged into the
Yes.
into the
Yes.
the site, just made a huge difference. A huge, as in 1/3 of the cost
Hmm.
overall. Yeah, and I sometimes wonder if people sit there and they see this is happening to them. And if I say people, I mean organizations. Yes,
Hmm.
why don't they respond? It's just crazy for me that people want to keep on doing the same thing over and over and over again. Is it because they don't know how? Is it because they think it's too difficult? Because it's not that difficult to change. Yeah.
I think for me the difficult part is to make it a long-term success. Again, as we saw with COVID, when you're pushed to the wall, when you don't have other choices, a lot of organization changed like in a night, or in a week. But question again is now when the situation is becoming more and more back to normal, can they keep this? Can they keep the momentum? Can they keep the improvements? Can they make this as a capability rather than a one-time thing? And this is I think the big challenge right now with the organizations, because they had the drive, they invested a lot, they did some improvements, which are going to help them in the next maybe a year or two. But then again they will be not in front of the line.
Yeah.
So
So the message is then, don't think of this as a project. Think, and I mean, if you think about it, that's what transformation is, isn't it? It's completely changing the way that you do things,
yes,
or even who you are, for that matter. So there, the capabilities comes into play again, eh? Yeah, what are you able to do? And
by
I
the way,
think
this
that's,
reminds me of a funny question I once
yeah.
had. Is it a digital transformation, a single, or digital transformations, meaning you do this repeatedly? And in my head, to be honest with you, I mean, both of those are valid. It depends how you look at it. But if you look at it as a single thing, digital transformation, it gives you this long-term perspective that it's not something you just start and finish, but it's something you need to do again and again and again, and keep the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Where if you see it as a digital transformations, there might be a gap in between transformation number one and transformation number two, and what happens in this gap? A big question mark there.
Yeah, and what often happens when we have these gaps is that whenever there's friction, behavior falls back to previous patterns.
Exactly.
So as you the gains that you've had, you can actually wipe out if it isn't something that you keep on doing.
Yes.
And maybe I'm going to do something that I've never done before. For those of you who were not exposed to Agile Adapt yet, it is actually the approach is a what do we call it? A repeated approach, a continual approach where you go through a cycle over and over and over and over and over and over again. And one of the reasons why we chose that approach is because change that is small and continuous tends to stick much better than big changes. Yeah. So, and if you think about it, actually, the butterfly as a symbol of transformation, and then think about the change, the exponential change or versus organic change. The organic thing is much better, and it lasts much better. I'm
But
doing a
also, if
little
you
bit
do
of
it
a
steadily, again, coming to the noise, if you make this part of the normal living, if you make this part of the organizational culture again, then people will not see this as a noise.
yeah.
If you involve the people, if you show them that this is not a one-time off, if you show them that, okay, maybe this time like I have two kids, I have two small daughters, and when we say you need to bring, the fork and the spoon to the table, usually it's one of them, and the other one starts, I wanted to do it, Okay, and we say, look, this time it's your sister, next time it's you, so have your patience, we eat 3 times a day, so you have your turn, So basically what I want to say is that even if it's not your turn as an employee, the organization should make sure that your turn comes and regularly,
Wow.
then once in a lifetime, and then you get used to this. As I said, a lot of people have never been in IT project or a software development project or in general a digital whatever project, and when they join such a project, they don't feel right, they don't feel comfortable with this, and I think this needs to change, because technology is everywhere. As I said, kids nowadays, I don't think for them technology is something extra. They live with
Mm.
technology, They're going to live their whole lives with this technology, So people that think technology is something on top or something extra, they also think this is a noise for them,
Mm.
The whole thing.
So digital is the way that we, or one of the new ways that we do things. Um, it is not something extra. It is embedded in the new normal. Yeah, I
Mhm,
suppose. Yes.
mhm.
Um, and I like the fact that you said that the organization must make sure that everybody has got the opportunity to take part in an initiative. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and in your experience, do organizations do that? And those who do, how do they do it?
I can give you an example from my experience. Um, Maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I went to Sweden and I was invited there to support a big service catalog change. So there was this service provider, and one of the newest members in the team, very young employee, but very motivated, raised a hand and said, look, we are selling to every single customer a different contract with a different parameters, and then I need to support it, this is not good. And he was like really new to the organization even, um, so the company said, okay, that makes sense. We also noticed that this is not very efficient because they had, by the way, 4 service desks on parallel,
Okay.
so they noticed, that the money income is not the best, and they said, okay, would you like to lead this project, And the guy, obviously smart enough, said, yes, I want to lead it, but the question is, can I lead it, do I have all the knowledge, So what happened is they hired me to be his shadow basically and lead him through this challenge, So I was his shadow, I was giving him advices, I was giving him best practices, I was helping him do the work, But in the end of the day, he always felt that this is his project, his baby, he's changing the whole organization, and everyone was supporting him. Honestly, there was no envy, no how to say, political maneuvers, because if you put a questionnaire, I can bet that 100 from 100 people will say this is the best thing ever, because everyone was really buried with work, everyone was doing extra hours. So it was there, it just someone needed to raise a hand and to start this, and back then it was not called a digital transformation. But right now, you can easily call it a digital transformation, because they really changed the way they do the business at not only the contract, because in the beginning they thought that it's going to be only a let's change our contracts, a kind of a project, and in the end it turns out that they changed the whole delivery model, basically change their structures, have one service desk instead of four, change their tool sets, train the people to work in a different way, so a full-blown digital transformation for me, which started as a let's change our contracts idea,
Mm.
so yeah, there are good examples about this.
Okay. And it's great that organizations actually do that, because and I think we need to try and motivate organizations to be less afraid to let people in the organization drive change.
Yes.
Many people think, or many organizational leaders think, that it's safer to get a professional to come and lead the change in the organization. It's actually not.
Mm-hmm.
It is
Yes.
much better for the change to be embedded in the organization. It also makes it sustainable, yeah. Because I always say to organizations, the reason why I spend so much time with you, teaching and giving advice rather than doing, is because I'm not going to be here tomorrow, but you will,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I think that's sort of a approach that I find helpful, but also in the same very frustrating, that people, especially leadership in organization, when there's a problem, they want to make it somebody else's problem.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the right response is to say, as you say, put up your hand and say,
Yeah.
who internally is going to do this, and how can we support you to do this well? Yeah. So
But
kudos to
also
that
from the long-term
organization that,
perspective.
yeah,
No,
absolutely.
sorry. When you come as a, because we've done a lot, I'm sure you know, you and me, as an external consultant, you come, you do the job, you do the greatest of all implementations, like by the book, but then you leave, and what happens is that sometimes the organization cannot eh, take the driver's seat and drive this further.
Yeah.
So this happens a lot, Again, this happens a lot. A lot of I've seen this, Sometimes I'm hired to do a second implementation, because the first one failed, and it's not failed, Sometimes I watch what was done and I say, look, that was not a bad implementation. Why it failed? And they say, well, we didn't know how to drive it further. Okay, that's the reason why it failed. But basically, what I want to say is that if you have internal people which are there all the
Mm.
way, then it will not even be a changing of the driver. It will be basically driving on your own, like when your kids learn how to drive, you are there, but they're still driving. So eventually one day they go alone and drive alone on the street. So I think this is the way better model, and I think
Mm.
this is something that again is not often done. Sometimes organizations prefer to hire external consultants, big companies that can come and deliver and deliver and deliver, and then when it's done, they sit there and think, okay, and what do we do now? How do we use this and how do we drive it further?
Yeah.
And again, it's bad. It ends up bad.
But it comes back to a point that you made earlier, the importance of building capability.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. because
Okay.
because again, and that's also another perspective of the digital noise. There's so many tools we have, there's so
Mm.
many tools we have right now in each organization. And again, for example, I recently started a new project and I need to be onboarded in new tools. And I have this capability now, after 15 years in this business, I can onboard on everything. Just give me some pointers, and I can start using this tool maybe in a week or something. Um, but a lot of people are not like this. So the more tools you bring into the organization, you need to teach the people, how do I onboard to a tool? What are the
Mm.
steps? When I get an email saying, hey, from next month we're going to change this tool with another tool, what do I need to do? How do I learn a new tool? And
Mm.
and this is important for me because the tools are becoming more and more, and people are really, sometimes they find it hard to be onboarded on a tool too. And this is also part of the whole digital transformation.
Yeah. And I think that one must also be cautious. Just because there's more tools available doesn't mean you have to use more tools.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
I mean, I'm busy with a project at the moment where I reckon in at least one stream of the work that I'm doing, half of it is because different parts of the organization wants to use their own tools.
Yes. We've seen that a lot.
Instead of the organization working together.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, if you, I suppose if you boil it down to the essence, the things that leadership need to do are not that difficult. Yeah. So you've mentioned that there's a the need to educate themselves
Yes.
about, two things, I suppose: the way that the world is changing and what digital is doing to the world, but also management theory, so that we don't use the wrong stuff. And secondly, the need for direction, leadership, and strategy.
Yes.
Because if that is missing, then we sit with this plethora of tools out there that's actually working against each other, because everybody wants to do something digital instead of doing
Yes.
the right thing.
I'm noticing this, sometimes when I go to a customer site, I mean, maybe it's normal. Again, part of the big organization living where you have the C level, the D level, the VPs, and you name it. There, a lot of management. Um, but sometimes I really notice that people, everyone starts to walk only in their shoes. Live in their own world, and kind of you ask the CEO, hey, what about this and that, and he turns immediately to the CIO and just looks at the CIO waiting for the input of the CIO, because it's a technology topic or a digital topic or whatever. And then I'm asking myself, okay, I'm not saying that that every CIO should be as good as the CIO, or the IT director. Of course, you need people which are better than you in certain topics, but you need to have certain level of understanding. You need to have certain level of experience. And if you don't have this experience, you can make it. um,
Mm.
I can give you a funny example, and I'm really proud of this. My wife came to me and said, "Look, there is this training for fathers how to comb the hair of their daughters. How to make ponytails.
Okay.
And I said, "Look, obviously, this is something that I'm going to need now as a skill. So even if I fight it, it is going to happen eventually. So why not, And I went to a training of, making ponytails. It's not funny. There were a lot of other fathers like me there, and I think if you're sitting there, and you have no clue what people are talking about, like blockchains, like clouds, elastics, etc. You can gain this experience. It's not shameful to say, look, I
Mm.
need to gain some experience. So I think people need to be honest with themselves. Doesn't matter what is your level. If you're missing this, you can always gain it. Nobody is born ready to do everything.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree. I love your example. Yeah. So it's such a foreign world for me because I've got two boys. So
Okay.
I just continue to do all the stuff that I always did.
Well, maybe one day it will change. So yeah, life changes. Life
Yeah.
changes, and people um, need to develop themselves. So maybe this I can say also. I personally try every year to have at least one training, one certification, something
Mm.
new. So it's not about the certificate, more about learning something new, something different. Um, and I think people should think about this, and should be really having this in their list of things, because if you stop developing yourself,
Mm.
it's not good.
Yeah. Sorry, I can't help myself. I need to take the Mickey out of you with your choice of agile training. Um, so yeah. I just need to say that safe is not safe.
Again, um, for me, what is most important is that you take the step, that you do. I mean, the year before that, in the beginning of COVID, for example, yeah, or maybe the year before that one, I took a sales training. So
Okay, good.
I went for a sales training, basically discussing how do you open up a discussion, how do you identify the sponsor, or how do you send the contract, how do you close a deal, and stuff like this,
Mm,
nothing to do with my duties at this point, but opened my eyes for a lot of things, because
mm,
again, and I'm sure you've heard about this, everyone in the organization is in sales. So if you think about it, what's wrong of sending people even to sales training, or
yeah.
some kind of a sales training, I'm not saying that everyone should become a sales person, but selling is not easy, I have to say. IT projects are not easy, but selling IT projects and selling in general is also not an easy discipline. People think it's very straightforward, but we all know it's not. Selling is an art, I can say. It's really an art.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I did a post, what is it, about a month or so ago,
Hmm.
um, where I can't believe it, but my company is 15 years old or 12 years old or something like that. Um, and if there's one job that I hate, but that I spent the most time on, it's selling. Yeah,
Yes.
everybody needs to sell. Yeah.
But then again, the question, coming back to the whole discussion, we can even take this again as an example, because maybe if you have been trained more, or if you have more exposure to sales, you could have seen this as really something normal, and something that is not burdening you,
Yeah.
even if you're not the biggest of sales experts in this world,
Mm,
so again, the analogy to the digital, nobody says that we should know everything, and we should be experts in everything,
mm,
but I think the world is really moving to this direction, that if you know, I'm sure we all know about the so-called T-shaped professionals.
mm. Yeah.
People are now should now become more and more T-shaped professionals, because it's really important, to
Mm,
have this T-shape, and not just the specific, the daily
yeah.
expertise, for your work.
So just for those who don't know about T-shaped professionals, if you think about a T, the top is wide but thin, and then the middle is thin but deep. So you should have broad skills, and it doesn't need to be very detailed. And then you need to be really good at something. So that's the
Yes,
downstroke
of
of the
course,
T.
of
Yeah,
course.
yeah,
Yes.
um, yeah. But it comes back to, I suppose, then the organization creating opportunities for people to learn new things, to build new skills and capabilities. And also, as you said right in the beginning, capability doesn't only apply to people. It also means that you need to change the way or improve the way that you do things. That's also a capability in the
Hmm.
organization.
Yes.
Um, the ability to use different methods and tool sets, that's also a capability. Yeah.
The capability to innovate, as we know, it's also a very
Yeah.
challenging thing.
Yeah.
It's
And
also
that's a
very
big
challenging.
challenge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Incidentally, I'll tell you when we close off a little bit more about that, because um, I've had some really, really good conversations with Nicola about that specific topic. Um, and I think it's one of the most undervalued and underdeveloped capabilities in organizations. And one of the capabilities that we really desperately need to survive in the digital age.
Hmm.
Yes. So we coming up for an hour, and I promised everybody that I'll stick to an hour. Um, as I said on previous occasion, my first Get It was 3 hours long, and people said to me, "No, that's a little bit too rough." Um,
Next time you need to send me maybe one of your beer bottles or wine or some food. If we're going to make a 3 hour.
that long,
Sure.
yeah, absolutely. So, closing off, what would be the 3 things that you would advise a leader in an organization to do for their organizations to become more digital capable? So that's doing for themselves.
Mhm.
And 3 things that you would advise that they make sure happens within their organization.
I think the first step for me should be that senior management should how to say should open up. Okay, should not resist it. Should accept
Mm,
it. Okay, so I think the first step for me in the modern world is to accept that digital change and digital transformation is inevitable. And you need to accept this, and you need to accept it personally. So first step is, of course, to accept it personally, and then to accept it as organization. Okay, so this is for me the first step. Then when you accept this and when you say, okay, now I know that this needs to happen, and I know that this will happen and happen again and again. How can we become better at this? And as we know, especially with kids, the only way to become better at something is to do it more and more again and
mm,
again. And yes, you can fail. And yes, some projects might be, not what you thought about it and not what you expect about it. But every project is a learning curve, right? Every project should bring you forwards. So the second step for me is you should do it. So do it. Um, Start with whatever you can start there as a projects. Um, and then the third step is again, bring the whole organization in. So don't think about it. It's like digital transformation is for senior leadership, for the IT, maybe for the software development, maybe only for the product owners. No, everyone can become a product owner eventually. Everyone can become a software developer eventually. So you never know. So you need to really put everyone in, as long as they will, of course, to do it, but you should motivate them to want to do it. But find a way to put more people in. It doesn't mean that you don't need external people to support you or external companies. Of course you need them, but really don't limit yourself to think this is only for IT or this is only for this organization. Put everyone you have there in the project, and maybe you will be surprised to see what happens in the end.
absolutely. So, Bhupendra, I hope my pronunciation of your name is correct. Yes, absolutely. I mean, T-shaped as a minimum, maybe pie-shaped, maybe cone-shaped. Um, I spend my life being a specialist generalist. Um, so there's very few of the tooth or the teeth, yeah, the teeth of the comb that's very very long. There are a few, but there's certainly quite a lot of teeth. Well, Nicola, thank you very very much. I enjoyed our conversation. Thanks for stepping up
Same
to the
here.
plate. And stick around. I'm just going to show a few closing slides and then we're going to hopefully close before the hour is done. Um, I need to share my screen again. What happened? Did I close it? There we go. So if you in the vicinity, and as Nicola said, he works quite broadly in the European continent. In the European continent. I'm such an idiot today. I just can't speak English. Do give him a call. Yeah, his contact details is on the next slide. So you can always go back to the slides on our YouTube channel. Yeah, if there's any specific questions that you want to ask him or want to maybe in future engage with him to help you with sticky problems in your organization, by all means do so. I can vouch for the quality of his work. And then the new book is nearly ready. Hoping we will still make the 22 June deadline, and it's all about innovation. So if you want to develop a innovation capability within your organization, watch out for this. It's called Out Innovate the Competition. And thanks for your contribution, Nicola, also.
Happy to do
And
it.
that leaves me to say thank you very much for joining us for episode 11. And we are finishing off the broadcast now.